Brandale, and you're watching PowerTalks, Wise Words from Wise Women. In this video series, powerful women at the top of their game share their experience and their advice with you. And I am so delighted to have one of these incredible powerhouse women with me today, Laura Brandao. Welcome, Laura. Laura is the president and partner at American Financial Resources, which is a full-service residential mortgage company. She is the host of a very popular podcast, a strong advocate and supporter of women in the financial industry, and she's an author. In today's episode, I'll be talking to Laura about her leadership journey in the industry, her unique challenges as a woman leader in the industry, and what she attributes her success to. I'd like to start out by just asking you to share, as I usually do, just share a little bit about your leadership journey and how you got to be where you are today.
How I got to be president of AFR is during the subprime financial crisis, I needed to make a change. I had to make a decision at that time of, was I comfortable staying at the company I was working at, or did I need to make a decision and make a change? And at that moment, I met with a gentleman that had an idea of starting a brand new division. And he gave me the opportunity to start it as being employee number one, with the option of 100% being in control of who I hired, how I set it up, and the leadership of that particular division. And I took it. I took it with no salary, no benefits, 100% commission. And at that moment, I said, I'm going to make a difference, and I am going to show the world that mortgages are a great thing. And from there, I did it. I grew it to the fourth largest wholesale mortgage company in the country within a few years. And now I'm a top 10, because there's a lot more competition now. I'm a top 10 wholesale lender in the country. And I did it just by putting other people first.
That is, an amazing story. And I'm sure people who are watching this now are like, well, she makes it sound so easy.
There was a lot of steps in there.
I just did it, right? And that's way easier said than done, as we all know. So, wow, what a story. Let's break that down a little bit, right? So you just did it. You went for it. And often, many of the women I talk to, there's this voice in their head, I can't do this, the self-doubt, well, how in the world can I do? I've never done this before. How did you manage all of that? Or did that even come into does that even come into your head?
So number one, I think we all have those moments. Yeah. If some woman out there said they don't have those moments, they probably don't want to admit it. Right. So I think we've all had those moments in time. And I have a couple of things that I do when those little negative creepers come into the back of my mind. Yeah. Number one, so when that thought comes in the back of my mind, all I need to do is think about, why am I doing it? Am I doing it to build a successful company so that I have thousands of team members that are relying on me to make sure that I am doing the right thing for our clients? Am I doing it because I'm serving all the families that I need to bring home to make sure that their mortgage needs are taken care of? Am I doing it because I wanted to send my kids to college without any student loan debt? That was important to me. That was something I needed to do personally. So we all have those moments in time, but you need to wrap back around as to why you're doing it. And I promise you, you can do it.
Yeah. I love that, Laura, because I think, one of the things I always talk about, when I talk about imposter feelings or talk about that self-doubt, is that there's way too much of a focus on me when I'm doing that.
Take the focus off of you. That's it.
Right? Whereas when you reframe that, and the three questions, I always say, it's how can I serve? Right? How can I serve? That changes your mindset.
Your whole perspective changes.
What are people thinking of me? It's how can I serve? And you've just totally embodied that as you talk. And that is such a big shift. because then it's not, what are people thinking of me all the time? Or what am I doing? It's, what am I here to do? And it's
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Janet, no one's thinking about you.
right.
You want to know why? Janet, do you want to, I'm going to tell everyone out there listening, no one is thinking about you. You want to know why? Because they're too concerned with themselves.
Right.
And I'm not saying that in a negative way.
No,
that's just the way our minds think. Yeah. Our minds are always worried about, is Janet going to think my hair looks nice? Is Janet going to think the way I sound is right? Is Janet going to think that what I'm saying is intelligent? Guess what? Most of the time, we're thinking about what we're going to say next.
Exactly. You know, it's so funny. You don't laugh. I mean, this is an aside, right? But my mother-in-law, you know, God bless her, she's always worried about sitting somewhere by herself, right? Because she thinks everybody is staring at her. And I always tell her, no one really cares. They're not staring at you. They're worried about what they're doing. They really are not staring at you. But it's so interesting when we have that self-focus, right? And that self-conscious. I mean, I know when you're putting yourself out there and all of those things, I mean, people can be a little bit critical, etc. But on the whole, right? Most people are not consumed or interested.
But even that, Janet, okay, if you put something out there, let's say you put something on social media, right? Let's say you write something and you're very concerned. Who am I to write something? Who am I to put a video up? Who am I, right? And then maybe somebody does criticize you. Maybe somebody does say, oh, Janet, that you missed the mark. That was not interesting, or that was not of value. Janet, I'm telling you right now, if someone takes the time to be critical about another person, you know, the first thought in my mind is, I feel sorry for that person. Maybe you would have written it differently. Maybe you would have said it differently. But we should be celebrating every human in this world.
That's such a positive attitude. I mean, I think I'm appalled sometimes when I see, like, I was listening to an interview with Brene Brown, right? Brene Brown, the author of Daring Greatly. And she talked about how, as she started putting herself out there with these TED Talks and talking, how she would get these horrible comments about how she looked, you know. And you know what's interesting about that is that a lot of the comments come from other women.
I know.
Which, what's with that, right? I mean, so
that's their insecurity,
right?
What that is that they feel, number one, it's usually because they want to do those things.
Right.
They have a dream of doing a TED Talk or putting themselves out on a stage or sharing their voice, just sharing their voice. And when they see someone else doing it, they immediately want to tear down, and I don't mean everyone, but that person wants to tear down because they're actually angry at themselves. It comes back to them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I mean, we could do a whole session on this, right? But there's something about, you know, as women, if this doesn't change, you know, we are always going to be sitting in the same spot. You know,
correct.
We're not moving together collectively. And I really believe, and it's one of the reasons why I do this series, is because I believe our collective wisdom is power. It's not just our own wisdom. So what about obstacles? Like, as you're doing this, it didn't just magically poof happen, right? Did you face any obstacles as you were doing this? Did you ever have, like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? How am I going to do this? I mean, any of that?
You know, now obviously you always run into obstacles.
Right.
So there is nothing that you're ever going to do in life that aren't going to give you curveballs of, oh, didn't expect that to happen, right? So we've all gone through that. But if I was going to say what was some of the challenge that I went through, and not even specifically in my company, but in my industry. When I was coming up through the ranks within the mortgage industry, we are a male-dominated industry.
Right.
Okay. Most, you know, executives within the mortgage industry are men. I did not see. Now, there's actually lots of women that work in the industry, just not at the executive level. They are more of the worker people. Okay. So,
which happens in a lot of industries.
Oh, it does. It does. That's right.
Industries, right. Whereas as you start going up the ranks, you start to see fewer and fewer women. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was certainly a challenge that when I was invited to meetings, I like to call it the only.
Right.
Many, many, many times you're the only.
Right.
And you had to get comfortable with walking into a room where everyone was speaking about sports and everybody was going out to play golf. And then after dinner, they went outside to smoke a cigar. And Laura was not part of any of those things. I wasn't invited to those luncheons at the golf course. I wasn't invited to go and smoke the cigar after dinner. I was never part of that. So I had to figure out how, I like to call it being undeniable. I had to figure out, how was I going to be undeniable in an industry where I couldn't network with the gentlemen the same way other men could network? Right. Okay. So the way that I approached that, I outworked them. I was the first in the office, the last to leave every weekend, performing high level of sales. And I was undeniable because bottom line, you were not outworking me and you were not out executing anything I was doing. Now, something changed though, Janet. In 2018, and I'm sure we're getting there, but I want to keep on the path of the story to explain. So from 2007 to 2018, that was my life, working 5:30 in the morning in the office until all hours of the night, 7 days a week, building a company. And in 2018, something happened in my mortgage industry called margin compression. What that means is the bond price compressed. And so you technically had to do double the amount of volume to make the same amount of profit. Okay. Well, at that moment, I had to figure out, once again, I'm the leader. How do I double the size of my business magically? And something happened. A new organization appeared within the mortgage industry. And that organization started to be very vocal within the mortgage industry. And I decided, maybe this is the way I can get more business. If I become part of this organization, this could be my opportunity. And the head of that organization said, Laura, how would you like to get up on a stage at our first event in Irvine, California, and speak in front of all these people? Now, Janet, I know you know me now in 2021, but in 2018, I had zero social media presence and I had never been up on a stage in my life.
Wow, that's surprising. And it's surprising, especially if I know you, obviously on your podcast, I've been on your podcast. I
none of it.
That does not seem to be something that would be an issue for you. Yeah.
Well, it was. I was very scared. Mm-hmm. And I agreed. I said yes. But as it got closer, I decided to chicken out. Oh. I actually convinced one of my salespeople to go do it for me. And the promoter of the organization, he called me and he said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, he's great. You're going to love this gentleman. He will be amazing. He said, no, I want you and you're doing it. If that man had not said no to me, the whole ripple would not have happened. This is what happened when I got up on that stage. After I spoke, I had a line of women from the stage to the back of the room telling me that they've never seen a woman executive that looked like them up on the stage before. And it was at that moment that I decided I wasn't going to be the only anymore in those rooms. I was going to start pulling the chairs out from those board tables and opening those chairs to make sure that there is diversity of all sorts and inclusion within our industry. And we have made huge strides in just a short amount of time.
Those are kind of almost defining moments, right? I mean, and that sounds like that was one of your defining moments. It's being afraid of something and then doing it and then seeing the impact that it has. Right?
Don't we all
Yeah.
have those moments?
Yeah. So now let me ask you this. I know you have a secret mantra you use and you give as advice to other women, which is something along the lines, and I'll let you present it. Well, you know what? I'll let you tell us what it is. But can you talk a little bit about this advice that you give and why you give it to other women?
Yes. So my mantra is say yes every day. Now, I need to clarify that say yes every day does not mean to say yes to everything.
Right.
That is not what I'm saying.
That
So
would
I
be
don't.
that would be like a non-starter, right? A
Yeah.
showstopper.
We cannot do that.
Yeah.
We cannot. And as women, sometimes we
We already
try
do
to
that.
say yes
Right.
to
We
too
already
many
do
things.
that. Right.
So just want to put a disclaimer. What say yes means is that you are open every single day to pay attention to what is happening around you and to be open to the fresh opportunities and discovering something that puts you a little out of your comfort zone every single day. But here's the caveat to it: with no expectations or preconceived notions. See, what happens in our lives are a lot of times we say yes to things, and then if a result that we expected to happen does not occur, we give up.
Right.
We actually say, well, look at that, Janet. I tried, I did this, and nothing happened right after. A lot of times nothing will happen, but you are planting seeds.
Yeah.
And those little seeds are going to grow down the road. You will not even know when that field of beautiful flowers will bloom.
I love the seeds analogy because I think that is so true. I think what happens is we become attached to an outcome, right? And we're attached to here's what I'm doing and here's why I'm doing and here's what I'm going to get out of it.
That's right.
And that is, so I don't get what I wanted out of it. So
I
it
stop.
wasn't worthwhile and I'm not going to do this anymore.
That's right. Then I never do it again.
Right.
That's right.
And I see that even just, in business, right? You go out, you're doing something and nothing happens, but you've made a connection, you've planted a seed. And then 3 years later, this person calls you and it's like, oh my goodness, I want to do all of these things with you. So you never know where these things are going to come from, but it's being open to it and not seeing it as a waste of your time is what I.
That's right. There are no wastes of connections or moments, or it's living in the present.
That's a wonderful philosophy, but it's different to say it because you hear that a lot. You hear, well, live in the moment, or just be in the moment and be mindful. You hear all of that, but there's a difference in really embodying that and living that. Let me ask you, I mean, we've talked the gamut here, right? But what other parting words of wisdom would you give to any women leaders who are watching this today? You've given us already so many different nuggets and just based on your experience and your journey. But is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think would be helpful here?
I think that we all go through phases in our lives, right? I know that when I was first starting out, I was paving the way, right? I was kind of cutting down bushes with a machete, making my own path, right? So that's one phase. And then you find your path. And once you're on that path, now you're putting the bricks on the road, right? And you're making that road smooth and you're smoothing it out. So I would say that, depending on what phase you're in, once you get past that smooth road, look to the right, look to the left, and look behind you, because there's a lot of people on the machete path that need to be pulled forward onto the paved path. And I think that you mentioned it before. I believe that together as a community, whatever team that you are working with, the levels you can reach by supporting yourself around those people and lifting other people's up will take you to levels that you would never, ever have dreamed you could accomplish.
Powerful words from a powerful woman. Thank you so much, Laura, for spending your time with us today. I think this will be very resonant for many of the people watching. And it's also just an inspiring way to spend time watching this video. So I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.